Hello, hello. We're on. I think, yes, we are. Perfect. Great. Hello, welcome everyone yet again to another one of my, as I call it, the Beard Monster Industry Specialists. I have someone very interesting today. Normally, when I do these are people I've only just met or I've researched, or it's someone that I've heard something about. This gentleman today I have known for far too long. Also, his knowledge crosses over with some of my knowledge as well, which means we might be butting heads on some of it, or we might not. But in his specialist areas, he knocks the socks off me. So I think we get some great info today. And please, without further ado, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you work for? And then we take it from there.
All right. Hi, Peter, and Beard Monster fans everywhere. So I'm Rex Halverson, and my company is Truth Sells International. And I'm two bits of that is one is I'm really working for myself as a consultant for companies that want to grow their business. So sell in and sell through, and all the bits and pieces that go around that. I've worked at every level in organizations, split between retailers and suppliers. The other thing that I do is I work as an agent on behalf of brands. So currently I'm taking a lot of successful brands from their home markets and trying to introduce them here in the Asian Pacific market, for example.
Okay, cool. Right then. Reason why I know you is obviously it's your sales stuff and everything around that and how you help brands, but also you're exceptionally knowledgeable with the training sphere. So I'm going to put those two together and just go through questions in those. And I said, if you've seen my videos before, it's very open, very chit-chatty, and we try and draw information out from you that's going to help people in general business, not just our specialist fields. So then, I'm very outspoken about training, and the reason why I'm outspoken about it is because there's this constant, I don't know, people that toxic work culture, hybrid work not in the office and too many hours and 3-day week, and it's all about this toxic way that people are worried about how they're working, and they don't feel that being in the company they're not treated well. I've always said, in my opinion, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, the way to make staff, I'm talking about the front of house staff, all that to middle management specifically, and we can talk senior management, but the people that are the lifeblood of a company, the way in my companies before, and people I've worked corporately, I've found out not to have that toxic environment is what you pay back to the staff. And I'm not talking money, it's training. And I'd like to get your opinion on that. Do you think that training is important to that type of level of staff? And what type of training? And just give me one or two positives in what you think it gives those particular members of staff if you train them well.
Well, it's easier to start with the negatives, what happens when you don't train. In fact, I remember someone that we both knew that was asked once, so what happens if I invest all this money in training someone and they leave? And his response was, what happens if you don't train them and they stay? Right? So one of the key things is if you aren't training your people, then they're learning from other people, and you don't have any control over what they're learning and how they're learning it and how they're performing it. And since in today's world, many of those customers are going to face employees are going to face your end customers at some point, in one fashion or another, then you are really creating a scenario where your business is going to not thrive because they're not presenting either in their skill set or in their attitude about what they're doing. They're not going to be presenting the best possible product or service for you. So I look at it and say that I've seen instances. I worked for a retailer once that was the number one retailer in Southern California, dominant in their category for years. They had a 2-week training program. You were not allowed to talk to a customer until you had 2 weeks. And then there was an apprenticeship, if you will, a period of time where you worked under someone. I was the training manager for all the store managers at that time. I wrote my own trainings and I delivered them. Nobody was allowed to talk to customers without going through this process, and they would go back for refreshers. All right. Number one, boom. Somewhere along the line, this company decided to save money. And the thing that you don't see is when you see the training cost on the P&L, but you don't see the output.
Yep.
Right? You don't see the return because it's hidden in a lot of different places. Well, long story short, sorry, I'm making this too long, is they cut that out entirely. They would hire people that were house painters and put them on a sales floor the next day. Skills, knowledge wasn't there. So your first cost was when a competitor came to town who didn't offer anything better in terms of pricing or service, or excuse me, I shouldn't say service, in product range, etc. What the quality of the interaction had been so bad for so long that people voted with their feet, and we were out of business within 2 to 3 years. It was astonishing for the size of that business. But if you turn that around the other way a little bit, if your people are happy, and they're going to be happy if they feel good about what they do. So they're only going to feel good if they know the how to, not just the what and why. And most people focus on the what or why. They have KPIs, et cetera, but they don't know how to do them. So this pressure is there to perform, but I don't have the skill set. I don't have the knowledge to back it up. So if I don't have those things, what am I going to do to get rid of the pressure? I'm either going to try to cheat the system in some fashion, or possibly get back at the company in some way, so theft or some other kind of activity, and or I leave. And the cost of turnover, I think, is the largest hidden cost for most businesses, because it takes time to get a new employee, to train them up, for them to get the skill and knowledge, for them to reach their optimum. And then in the meantime, you've had management investment in following them around and cleaning up after them, et cetera. So I don't know if those are the positives, but they're the necessaries, if you will.
Well, I think you can see the opposite end of the formula. One of the reasons why I was so driven in my chain before to ensuring that everyone got trained is, and it's a selfish reason, but then, you know, the staff also seen that, is that, you know, I'd have a commerce chef and they knew what the marketing department did. If someone from marketing, if the commerce chef was away and realistically they had bandwidth, they could walk into one of the kitchens. So the entire idea, as far as I was concerned, is everyone was multitasking. And then if there was an issue, a problem within the business somewhere, they could just move in and take over if required. Which, as far as I was concerned, if everybody knew everything about the company at the level I did, my job is easier. Then I can focus on what I need to focus on right now, which is to be the ambassador of the company and ensuring operations from a 70,000 foot view worked. And if you I had in the procedures manual, minimum one training once a month in another department. It was just fact, and that's what you got. And then the staff felt multi-skilled, they felt happy within the company, and they knew everybody else in the company. Especially in retailers, you have the ivory tower head office, you know, that scream orders down to you and 5,000 pointless KPIs. But that was, head office didn't do that because they knew the problems and the you know, the utter mayhem that can happen at the front of house. But now vice versa, when a stupid rule came down, oh, you need to do this from head office, the people that are on the front of the shop are like, I know why they're saying that. It's because in marketing that file didn't go through properly, and they begin to communicate with it because they know each other's pains. You're only going to know the pain if you've done their job. Of course, I'm not going to put the commerce chef as marketing director, but you see what I mean. So you're making the company run better, job's easy for me, and people feel valued because I'm training them minimum once a month. Has to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. What occurs to me there is, if I know what the other people, in other words, if I see the other parts of my company as my customers as well, then I work better at giving them what they need to do what they're going to do.
Because you know what they need.
Because I've felt it, or I've been experienced it, et cetera. So absolutely.
I always ensured that, okay, I didn't have 300 units, I had 27 in the end. But what I did was, I always spent one day a month myself somewhere in a unit. I had to, because I don't know what their real pain is. Just because the unit manager said to me, oh, there's a problem with the stock system, and he explains what it is, I don't actually know what that is. It's just words. So I used to go in and say, okay, I'm going to work in a stock room today, and I'll be moving boxes around to figure out what the real problem is. And only then you can go, right, the system's failing here because you guys or you over there have not done this right, or the system's not actually capable of doing what we need it to do now. So now we have to fix it. And it might be exactly the same as what they're telling me, but without physically knowing it, I couldn't get through my brain what the problem was. So when I see CEOs of big corporates, what actually happened to me was, if it was an American company I worked for, the CEO and the MD of the company used to spend at least one day every quarter in a shop. But the shop they went to, they were pre-new. So they used to bring in 300 extra staff, and all the shop was clean and all the health and safety was done. There was extra security, full of stock. So the CEOs used to go, wow, store life's great. I mean, look, there's nothing to do. And they go away with this completely false image of the pain that are actually suffering. So then the CEO would say, well, from now on, you have to cut all staff by 30% because there's people hardly doing nothing. So I used to say, I had 2 field managers, what is your worst performing part of any of these stores right now? And they'll be honest with me because I know I wouldn't give them a slap. And I'd say, oh yeah, there's a problem in the kitchen. In terms, okay, I'll spend a day in that kitchen. So I'd see the real business, and that's the real thing that's happening right now, and it's all part of training. So anyway, again, we digressed. So you're specifically sales training, okay?
Yeah, and sales training, but also management training. So I referenced before, when I was a manager, no one taught me, right? I had to learn trial and error. But then I realized that the people that we were promoting to management positions didn't understand how to motivate staff, didn't know how to work with them. So I wrote my own trainings, right? And that stood me in good stead later when you and I worked together, because I was working for a supplier of consumer goods, as you know, and I would train their sales staff, and they'd go out rah, 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 and then there would be 80% turnover in a 6-month period. So I said, we've got to be training the managers, because they're actually the ones that are going to ensure that the behaviors that we're looking for are happening every day.
Sure.
Which, if I can point in here a positive about training, that you can take training and you can make it a sales tool.
Yes.
So I always would say training is sales, sales is training, right? Particularly in an instance where you have a product or service that you're trying to present to a market. So you'll remember that the company that we worked for, the training department was a massive investment by the company. And what we did is we went out and said, we're going to give you these products, but we're then going to teach everyone how to sell them. And that is why we were successful. Our products were, maybe marginally better, but they certainly weren't loads better. They certainly weren't some groundbreaking stuff. They were good products, but it was because we went in and trained. And that was why we were successful and achieved market dominance, because we invested in teaching their staff how to sell.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I carried from that company. It's the fact that I would say over is the wrong thing. If you focus very heavily on one sector of the business and invest in it, and you create that as your business's value add to your customer, then that will give you a leading edge. That will make you stick out more than the rest. So whatever it might be, you really overinvest in your PPC campaign. Or in that case, you're going to stick out more than the rest because that's your value add. That's the thing that people see about you. I'm going to really push on customer service. Well, that'll be the stick out. So if you want to overinvest in something that everyone else is heavily invested in, that's pointless. And one of the things that company did is that it overinvested, well, correctly invested in training. As far as I was concerned, that was their value add. That's what made them different.
Well, it was.
And that's where the money come from.
It absolutely was. We would go in, and in fact, I remember we had a new product range, and there was already a supplier in there that in all the stores, they'd introduced them to the category. They were well loved. They had good products. It was, it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of scenario. We decided we wanted to enter that category, and I went out and met with all of the senior execs in these retail chains, and I said, don't worry about the product. Let me show you how I'm going to train on it. And they said, oh, we can see that we're going to sell a lot more of these because of the training program. And we won every single account.
Yeah, the silent salesman is the way I reworded it after leaving. I can think to myself, how would I incorporate that into what I'll be doing? And I called it the silent salesman program. I'm actually a salesman. I'm teaching your people how to sell my product. So I'm a silent salesman. Right, let's jump on, because me and you can blither for hours. What I want to get out of you, because it's something that keeps on going into my mind, is that sales training, I think your company's only as good as its worst performing member of staff, specifically on forward facing things. So how, in your opinion, can sales training benefit the non-sales part of a company?
Give me a little more on that.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. The person that opens the hotel door, is there a benefit of them being trained in sales? And I'm being particularly narrow there.
I think if you were too narrow, you might say not really. But if you opened that up and said we're always selling, so In fact, one of the disconnects you always see is that, and you mentioned marketing before, you see an ad for a company and that everything is happy and the customers are delighted and we do this and this is our ethos. And then you go and you experience their customer service and it's nowhere near the image the marketing department created. All right. So that's a disconnect. And a lot of that disconnect is going to be in the people that are actually facing the customer. So in this case, it's the doorman. So do I train him how to sell a product or service? Yes, I do, but I currently modify that a bit. I'm training him to deliver the service called welcoming the guest and understanding the why of that. Why is that important? Why is that? You're the first person they see, right? And if I can go slightly off on that, I say this all the time in my trainings, you are the company. So that doorman is the company. Whatever hotel that is, he's the company as far as the customer's concerned. When they walk to that door, if he gives them poor service or creates a negative in them, they don't go, oh, that guy's probably having a bad day, but I love this company. Right? They react viscerally to this hotel is crap.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, if everyone sees that and Disneyland, of course, calls them guests always for that reason, you treat them in a way so that, yes, that's sales.
Good. I mean, the reason why I said hotel doorman is I had one hotel and I had this insane doorman. I mean, he was the most liveliest. In the States, and you get him in the UK sometimes, those guys spin the boards around with sail here, sail. He used to jump up and down on the street like that, wearing a security uniform. So I said to him one day, I says, they've got low guests at the moment, it's low season. Says, I wish I could get some more guests in right now. The P&L's looking particularly bad right now. I'm honest with everyone. And he said, can you give me some flyers? And he was at the front as a doorman, just giving flyers out to people. And I thought, yes, this is good. So I always thought to myself, if the bartender, I'm not saying a cook, but anyone and everyone gets some form of, I suppose it's sales process, isn't it? What if you narrow it down too much, it's not going to work. You're not going to teach the doorman at a consumer electronics store how to sell the spare TV remote. But if he's part of the sales process, or she, you can have a female doorman, if she is part of the sales process from start to end, it just augments the entire show, doesn't it?
It's interesting you mentioned that because one of the customers we had in the UK when we moved over there, actually they saw my training to their sales staff and they said, we want everyone to undergo this. So I literally trained 4,000 employees over the next 3 weeks. And it included the cashiers, but it also included the warehouse staff. It included the HR department, the marketing department. Every single person in the company had to go through this training because they wanted everyone to be on the same page in delivering this.
Good. Ryan, okay. This one, I've spoken about this before. I split sales techniques for consumer industry, but in other industries, but I'm very consumer biased, is that it's split into 3 zones. I have the black hat sales, like new linguistic programming, suggestion, mild hypnosis, and I've seen this actually operate in some fields, and it's obvious to spot if you understand it. There's the grey area, which takes a little bit from there and a little bit from the softer edge, which is really where I sit in everything I do. And then there's also the white hat, which is the very clean, very simple. Now, your company's called Truth Sells, so that automatically implies to me you're on the white hat side. So why are you white hat only? And why does this give, in your opinion, better results, or maybe say more satisfactory results than the grey area where I sit, or the black hat of doing the semi-hypnosis suggestion way of selling?
Well, I picked Truth Sales because over time, when I first started in sales, I was exposed to the usual sales training kind of materials out there, and you've probably seen them, and they relied on, in some part, and it may have been benign, but it was still manipulation. It was still some kind of taking the customer that, and the mindset was they don't know what they want, and you've got to force them to make a decision. And over the years, of course, we've seen that there's a great deal of resistance that has grown, and the image of a salesperson is extremely negative, right? And you see it all the time in popular media, et cetera, the portrayal of that manipulative type of thing. But you go back to it and say, you know what? People like to buy things, but they have fear. They fear buying the wrong thing at the wrong price from the wrong person in the wrong location. So you spend a lot of your sale overcoming or trying to respond to those fears rather than the product or service that you came in for, or
Right.
that they came in for. So what I learned to do as a salesperson was address the fears up front. So I actually reversed the sale, and I would tell them all the reasons why they should shop from the store before I ever showed them a product.
Okay.
Because I wanted them to get to the point called, oh, I can't make a mistake. This guy has a return policy. I can't pay too much. This guy is offering me a price protection policy. If the product doesn't work, they've got this, this warranty that'll back me up. They have the breadth of selection, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm relaxed. I can't go wrong here. I like this. And now I can focus on this, what I came in for. That's first.
So really, on a consumer sales point of view, what you're saying is it's that remove the fear first, because then the actual job of sales is easier.
Absolutely. The example I give is when you're a salesman, and yes, we both have a lot of retailers, but this works in any kind of scenario. If your customer comes in and you're talking to them, and they've got these hidden fears, and you never get them out, you never respond to them. What do they say at the end? Thank you for your knowledge.
Oh yeah,
thank you for your knowledge. Do you have a card?
Yeah, do you have a card? I want to speak to the wife, and I'll get a coffee. And
yeah. But so you're never getting the real problem. The real problem is that fear. So I want to get that fear dealt with. So, and actually the training program that I wrote, it's called RESPECT, and it stands for Ready, Engage, Search, Present, Evidence, Confirm, and Thank. And what I said is, if you want customers to respect you, if you want to change this paradigm in this relationship where you're battling, right? You're resisting, and somebody has to win over the other person, then you need to show them respect, and then they will give you respect. But implied in that is also a lot of emphasis on being ready for that customer, how do I engage with that customer, and then how I search for needs. Right. Yep. So I think that's the key part of this. And you heard me use the word confirm. I don't close. If I've done the right thing in terms of developing in the ready stage about my knowledge around products, around the competitive products, around the different reasons to buy my product, the different motivations, because they'll vary with people. If I've done all the work there, if I've got myself emotionally and psychologically ready, physically ready, I have my props and evidence in place, if I've spent enough time asking you enough good questions to figure out, even if you didn't know what you were looking for or didn't know what the benefits, how they would benefit you, then all I need to do is I've shown you this. And how does that sound to you?
Okay. Yeah.
And it sounds, it sounds great. I don't have to manipulate you. I don't have to do the Ben Franklin close, or the doorknob close, the puppy close, or all those
slam
things.
Your face close.
Yeah.
Hammer and nail close.
Look at my eyes, Look over there.
Been there, done that. This is, I suppose I'm going slightly off track. I think businesses today, and some articles I wrote about this, we're moving away from people in our people industries. So, I'm going about big data and how artificial intelligence doesn't work properly. And that's one half. And the other half is back to what I was saying before about these hybrid offices. And I said, it doesn't matter how open space and how many bean bags you have in your office. And, it's open floor plan and 4-day week. Every time you open something up, businesses automatically bring in a form of constraint to control what they've opened up. And because we've got more hybrid, more out of the office, more away from things, there's more constraints being brought in. And I'm going around a circle. You'll see why she's going to come into sales in a second. So one of the retailers I worked for many, many years ago, and I'm still in contact with them, their front of house sales staff, and I rechecked with them the other day, I got it slightly wrong, have 21 KPIs. 21. I mean, that's ridiculous. So if we're going to use your sales program that you train to someone, there's 5 simple steps, the hurdles to get to sale, wherever you want to call it. They're not going to use those anymore. It doesn't matter how hard you train them. They'll be too focused on these KPIs that if they don't add a sticker to it, add this to it, add that to it, so their end of their week numbers and all the key performance indicators are correct, then they're going to be in trouble. So these masses of constraints around people in work today, which is just forms of control, is causing the toxic, which I think is causing the toxic culture in work today. That's what it is. It's, I hate to use Star Wars lines, because I'm a Star Wars fan. Princess Leia says to Governor Tarkin, the more you tighten your grip, the more star systems slip through your fingers. And that's all I can see now is, okay, you can go home and you can do everything online, but we're going to put 600 KPIs and you have to have 9,000 files at the end of the night to ensure you've done everything. And like, people are just going ripping their, hair out of their head because they've got so much to do, which is not them doing their work. So I felt, and maybe I'm wrong, when I've read some of your things and some things I've looked on your website and I've talked to you about it, it's like your processes are less stringent, as in they're not heavy control. You must make the sale. You must get to the close. It's creating a work atmosphere or a sales training program that is relaxed enough to allow people to be who they are, to enjoy their work, but still get results. Is that a good way of looking at it?
Yeah, it's fair enough, because everyone's personality is different and every customer is different, and where you start in the process may be different. So I gave you a scenario of ready, engage, search, etc. Well, if you, particularly a retail floor, a customer might walk in and point to something and say, tell me about this, right? You've had no chance to ask questions. But if you have this understanding of what these elements are and what the value and how to use them, you can start answering that question and then turn back to, what interested you in this? Why did you pick that one up? And then you can start asking questions. You can get right back into that search portion of things. So it's not a strict, it must happen in this process, right? So it's like, a phone sales where they've got a script and you tell them something that's not pertaining to their script and they keep going.
Nothing
right?
to do with it.
Yeah. It's about understanding each element and what it does for you. And I can build KPIs into it, right? So if there is a need to present certain things, it's really around the next stage of it, which is, or it's fundamentally part of the ready stage, which is scripting. So I need to understand where I want to go. And just like in theater, I've got to have a script. But that script can be adjusted, right? But I need to be so comfortable and so, I'm forgetting the expression here, but it has to be so ingrained.
Yeah, that'd be fluid in it.
Fluid. So if something happens, a set prowls over, I incorporate it, right? I go with it, right? I go, because I know where I want to go, and I'm going to get there a different path.
Yeah, to go on what I was saying about this, I think it's a fluidity of, it's not constrained. And I do believe in KPIs. The KPIs I insisted on in my company were specifically based around making the front of house staff job easier. Because I was always under the opinion, and I trained everyone this, is that there's only one true KPI in business. It's very difficult to find. It's very complicated. You have to get an Excel spreadsheet and you go right to the bottom and it's on the right hand side and it says total.
Yeah.
That's the only KPI I'm interested in. I don't care how we get there. And it's not saying ruthless. This business is a profit orientated business. It is there to make profit. That's what the company was built to do. Yep. So my KPIs are to ensure you perform better at your job. Because if you're conscientious, you're well trained, and you understand the business, the only KPI of importance, total, will be going on that upward trend. The more KPIs I add to you, the less focused you are on being good at your job. That's what I felt. And obviously, I forgot what to say when you brought this up. When I was living overseas, somebody telephoned me on my UK number. So I'm 6,500 miles away. And it's one of these scripted telephone sales things. And I got halfway down it. And I said, yeah, stop. No, it's obviously halfway down the spiel. I says, I can't, you call my UK number. I need to be in the UK to access this. And you call my number and I'm 6,500 miles away and I'm not going back for 6 months. And the woman on the phone says, yeah, that's great. Really appreciate it. Anyway, when you just run straight past them. Like, can't you even want it. That's great, but let's do this.
Her KPI was finishing the script, not making the sale. So, yeah, I get that. If I can give you, if we can segue off that a little bit, it's part of it's developing an understanding of what it is you're trying to sell, and that's understanding your customer, right? And I know you know this, but I'll give you an example that came up. I was consulting with a musician who had a band, and he wanted to succeed more. And I said, well, how do you approach it? And he says, well, I meet with the bar manager or whoever is in charge, and I tell him about the music I play and all how good and all this stuff. And I said, no, that's not important to him. I said, you have to understand what's important to him. What's important to him is getting more people in the door, getting them to stay longer and consume more while they're there. What you do is you create an experience that supports that.
Yeah.
So if you just focus on your music, well, there's going to be some other guy that'll do it for $5 less, right? The guitar players are on every corner, but you've got to say what is it about your band and that you're going to draw more people in. They're going to spend more money. They're going to leave happy, which means they're going to want to come back to that place again more often, right? So understand your customer. And he's been much more successful ever since.
That makes sense. That's such a good point. Quick musician's joke. How do you stop the lead guitarist of a band from playing?
I'm not sure.
So show them some sheet music.
Okay. All right.
Because none of them can read music. They're just wiggly all the time.
Anyway. I'll give you one in return. Is what do you call a guy in a band that has a fight with his girlfriend?
No.
Homeless.
Yeah, that's good. What was it? What do you call the non-musician that follows a band round holding lots of equipment?
That would be the drummer, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the drummer. Oh, I know some drummers are going to kick my butt later on about that, but I don't care. I can deal with
we
it.
both know a specific drummer too.
Oh yeah, I suppose we do. Yeah, there is a drummer. Yeah, he ain't kicking no one's butt. Right. Well, verbally he might. So we're running short of time-ish. So I like to try and keep these to like 35, 45 minutes-ish. And we're going a little bit over, but that's fine. I want to get something off you about truth sales. I always say to understand a business or to understand a process, you need to know what it is, its most fundamental level, like one thing. Tell me that one thing about truth sales. What's its fundamental, its ethos? What's at the bottom of it, like a one statement?
Okay, if you want one, then it's selling solutions by solving problems or solving problems by selling solutions, whichever way you want to wrap that.
Okay. I like that type of thing. You can go both ways. Good. Right. It's just one of the things that, it doesn't matter what it is. To understand the business, you need to know its fundamentals. Without fundamentals, it never ever works. I want to bring up the blockchain, for example. It's not this ethereal, floating in the sky, incredible piece of technology. It's a ledger. That it can't be anything else. And once you understand that, it's a ledger. It's just an Excel spreadsheet, really, with boxes. It cannot be anything else. They go, oh, is that? Yeah, that's it. And everyone feels really happy about it. And they understand it and can use it. So a business model or a company like yours, what is it? What's that basic? And then expand to people that are interested in it. That's my opinion. Anyway, let's move away from the businessy type of thing. You do something that I think is very, very, very important. It is like environmental areas, animal welfare, taking care of your environment around you. But I know you're specifically into a certain type of animal welfare and activism, animal friendliness in your area where you live now, which is Australia. Can you tell us more about that? Because I think it's really important.
Yeah, well, I am or was the chair of Queensland Koala Crusaders, which is actually founded by my wife when we moved to Australia about 12 years ago. She founded this organization, so I've acted in multiple roles. And we are focused on the koala, of course, which has now just been declared endangered, although we really knew that was coming, and the designation should have been years, if not decades sooner. But we're down to the last remnants of koalas in many areas, and they may be gone in our generation. So we're doing everything we can to stem that tide and reverse it if we can, and support both the individual animals currently, but also look for ways to research and additional things we can do for the species.
I mean,
but there's another bit there that you may not be aware of. I was also chair for the Noosa Biosphere Reserve Foundation, which was one of 700 biospheres around the world designated by UNESCO as a place where there was a notable balance between the economy and the environment. So
okay, that's good.
So and wildlife was one part of that, but not just wildlife. It was how people would live sustainably in a natural environment. So looking at the land, the water, wildlife, and then people and economy.
I mean, maybe later on we can do is get me, you, and Matthias, the greenest man on the planet, together and have a talk about more of what we can do as individuals and what he
Yes.
brings to the table and your knowledge. Because even though it's not specifically about animal welfare, he's obviously very into it as well. And I think it's the more information we can get out for the normal person on the street understands, they're fully aware. Because you might see someone on the news, oh, this place burnt down and this has got the temperatures up. That's not real for most people. They don't know. It's not something they can touch. They're not speaking to someone. So, look, I have been there. I know this is what is happening right now, and this is what you can do to help. And until you get that connection with someone, we need to get more information out. You know, maybe it's something we can do later. And the question that's important to me is specifically about the koala. I mean, do you think, in your opinion, this is a doomed, species? Is there can we do something? Will it get better, in your opinion?
Well, this is extremely difficult because the numbers have dropped so low, and the threats are so are multiplied now. It starts with human activity, of course, and land clearing and development is the number one problem. Not only directly we took some of their home away, but we also fragmented them. So as the population's genetics start to deteriorate because they're no longer interbreeding or moving around as they normally would, you start getting higher incidence of disease. They still try to cross roads and yards, so they're hit by cars, they're attacked by dogs. So there's a lot of problems. So the answer is, if you ask me on some days, it's no, we're fighting a losing battle. And on other days, I'm more positive because we do see a rebound. I've seen this in other animal species. Where if you can set aside enough area and set up the right parameters, nature will do its level best to come back, right? And
sure.
You can see this. So that's the hope for. So we're doing research into disease that is affecting them. We are looking for, we're constant. I'm out many weekends planting trees and trying to restore connecting corridors as well as areas. So there's a lot of different things. It's not going to take one thing. It's going to take multiple things to save them. But I might point out, why does anyone care? Obviously, the koala is an icon, right?
Yep.
From one level, if you can't save something that's as beloved as a koala, as the Chinese did for their panda, then what hope do we have for any of the lesser known or loved species, let alone the reptiles, etc.? But also, if you save the koala, you have to save the forest. And if you save the forest, you save 1,000 species of plants and animals, right? And there's an enormous value to us in terms of our human health by saving the wild spaces.
I agree, actually. I didn't think of it that way. You're right. To save it, you have to ensure it's living air, it's living it, then that affects us. It's all secular. We're all living together on the same planet. Absolutely. As I say, I'm not a naysayer about global climate change and things like that, but I'm a centrist on 90% of what I do in my life. And I always say, I don't care whether you believe, what we're doing, what's happening to animals or our environment or the weather patterns is us that's doing it or not. It is happening. That's one side. The other side of the equation is I like to live in a clean house. Okay, I clean myself. When I pick up my cup off the floor, I do it myself because I live in a clean environment. That this planet is all our home. So stop throwing plastic in the sea.
Yep.
You don't throw your garbage into your bedroom, do you? Empty the trash sack into your bed and go to sleep. So why are you chucking everything? It's not difficult. It's one small thing. I'll pick it up and I'll put it in the place where it's supposed to be, in the hope that the systems above me are going to put it in the place where it's supposed to be. And we need to take personal responsibility of the small things first, and then we can move up to do things like your good self, to do saving animals. Which brings me on to the final thing about this area. If someone wants to help you in the area where you are, how would they do it? Is there a website or a contact details?
Yes, I can look at queenslandkoalacrusaders.org.au, and they'll find information about the organization and how to donate, etc. It'll all be on the website. So, or they can just Google Koala Crusaders or Queensland Koala Crusaders, and they'll get there.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we're going to get there. Right. So this is the final thing, which I think is probably the most important for yourself. Hopefully, people have gained some information off you and about you. And if somebody wants to use your talents in a more commercial way, how would they contact you?
Truthcells.net. Just write Rex Halverson at truthcells.net, or go to my website, Truth Cells, and they'll have a contact link there, and they'll see a little bit about what I have done in the past and what some other people have to say about me, because in my mind, I can say lots of things. It's what other people say that you want to pay attention to.
Yeah. And I will add, you know, Rex has a wealth of knowledge gained over many decades. And even though some of it crosses over some of the things that I know and do, I always like to refer to some of the things that Rex has taught me in the past, because he's smart at what he does and he brings a lot to the table that will affect the bottom line of any company quite rapidly. And I have seen this firsthand whilst working with him with other companies. So that's my say amazing things about you, because it's true. And I want to say one final thing is thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Very appreciate it. I'll try and get that one with Matthias done, actually, because I think you two can have a lot of crossover. And he's very, very heavily connected to a lot of government organisations and funding sources for this type of thing. You know, so, you know, so I think there could be a good way of getting something happening down there funding wise for you.
Okay. Yeah. Truth Sells applies very much for NGOs and environmental organizations as well.
That's good. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of use for that. I agree. Good. Right, I'm out of here. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. You're in Australia, so it's time for your bedtime, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Good night. Speak to you soon.
Good night, Peter.
Bye.